I worked for a moving company for about 2.5 years. It paid decent, and the work was straightforward. You show up, you load the truck, you unload the truck, you go home. The owner was a guy named Clifford Harmon. Big guy, always smiling, always cracking jokes, always remembered your name and your business. The kind of guy who's so friendly it almost feels like a performance. I didn't think much of it at the time. That was just Clifford. The first job that stuck with me was an apartment on Arnold Street, 4th floor, walk-up. The client wasn't home, which happens sometimes. Clifford would get the keys ahead of time and let us in. The place was almost empty. A few bags, some wrapped furniture, and 2 chest freezers. Here's the thing. The freezers were still plugged in when we got there, still running. Clifford told us not to unplug them until we were ready to move them fast. Said the client had perishables inside. They were heavy, way heavier than they should have been. I made a joke, said something like, "What's in here? A body?" The other guy working with me that day, a quiet man named Remy, just looked at me. Didn't laugh, just looked. And then there was the smell. You get used to bad smells in that job. Old carpet, mildew, cigarette smoke baked into the walls, but this was different. It was bleach, really strong bleach. And underneath it something else, something sour, something that the bleach wasn't quite covering. I didn't say anything. I loaded the truck and did my job. Over the next year or so, I noticed the same things kept coming up on different jobs. Chest freezers that were still plugged in, bags wrapped in thick plastic and sealed with industrial tape, furniture with drawers glued shut. Always that smell, always clients who weren't home, and always Clifford meeting us before the job with a smile and a hand on the shoulder. I kept moving things. I kept not asking questions. The job that ended all of it was at a ground floor apartment near the edge of the city. There were 3 of us that day. Me, Remy, and a new guy named Tyler. We were carrying bags out through the stairwell when Tyler dropped one at the bottom of the stairs. It split open. I was right behind him. I saw what was inside. Tyler just stood there, not really processing it. I think I already knew on some level what I was looking at. Everything I'd been not thinking about for a year and a half came together in about 2 seconds. I told Tyler to go wait by the truck. He started to argue, then he looked at my face and walked outside. I rewrapped the bag, carried it to the truck, finished the job, and drove back to the warehouse, then went home. A detective reached out to me a few months later. I didn't go to them, they came to me. What Clifford had been running, what I'd apparently been helping with without knowing, was a logistics network for organ trafficking. The apartments weren't random. The clients were all connected to each other. The bags, the freezers, that's how they moved what they were selling. Human organs taken from people who had no say in the matter. The detective told me the operation had been going on for at least 6 years. She told me I was one of the several employees who genuinely hadn't known. She also told me that Remy had known, had been coerced into it 2 years before I even started, and that Remy was eventually the one who tipped off the police. Remy, who looked at me on that first job and didn't laugh at my joke. I think about the weight of those freezers a lot. I think about how many jobs I worked, how many bags I loaded, how many times I drove away and went home and thought nothing of it. I work at a hardware store now. It's fine. It's quiet. Sometimes I'll be walking through my house and I'll just stop, stand in the doorway for a second. I'm not sure what I'm doing when that happens. Thinking, maybe, or trying not to. I took the overnight security job at a self-storage facility because I wanted something simple. I was going through a divorce and I didn't need any more stress. I needed something to do between midnight and 6 in the morning that paid a little money and left me alone with my thoughts. The place was 4 buildings, about 280 units total. Motion sensor lights on every walkway. A camera booth at the front gate. I had a space heater, a logbook, and a monitor split into 12 camera feeds. First month, nothing happened. That was exactly what I was hoping for. Around week 5, I started noticing Unit 14C. It was one of the larger units in Building 14. I looked up the account once to find an emergency contact, after things started getting strange. The unit was registered to a company called Veroline Property Holdings. No emergency contact listed. The account had been opened and cashed 3 years earlier. Perfect payment record the entire time. And 0 logged access. No gate swipes, no sign-ins, not a single recorded visit. That wasn't immediately alarming. People rent storage units they never use. It happens all the time. Someone moves, rents a unit, never gets around to filling it. What was strange was the motion sensor light. 3 or 4 nights a week, the light above 14C would come on. I'd catch it on camera 7. It would stay on for 15 or 20 minutes, then go dark, always between 1 and 4 in the morning. No cars in the lot, no gate swipe to match it. There's a pedestrian entrance at the back of the property, key code only. It doesn't register in the access log. I hadn't thought much about it before then. I started writing it down, dates, times. I told myself I was being thorough, but what I was really doing was trying to find a normal explanation, because the other explanation, someone accessing a unit in the middle of the night, no car, no log entry, doing it for who knows how long, was not something I wanted to sit with. On my 43rd night working there, I walked building 14. It was well within the job description. The guidelines say hourly perimeter walks and don't specify which buildings. I had a flashlight. The light over 14C was on when I reached that end of the row. The door was a standard roll-up, padlocked tight. I stood outside it and I listened. There was a sound coming from inside. I wanted to describe it carefully because I don't want to exaggerate. It was slow, rhythmic. It sounded like breathing. I stood there for a few minutes. The sound continued. I knocked on the door. The sound stopped immediately, completely, like someone had switched it off. I said, "Is someone in there?" Nothing. I walked back to my booth and called the property manager's emergency line. He answered on the 5th ring. Already irritated, I described the light pattern, the sound, all of it. He paused and then said motion sensors get triggered by rats, big ones. He'd call an exterminator, then he hung up. 2 nights later, I wrote it all down in the logbook. The dates going back weeks, the times, what I'd heard that night. The next morning when I came in for the shift overlap, that page was gone, not torn out, cleanly removed. The pages before and after it were untouched. I put in my notice the following week, told them it was family reasons. My supervisor accepted it without any follow-up questions, which itself felt like a small strange thing. 3 months after I quit, I searched Verlaine Property Holdings. No business registration anywhere. No address, no website, no trace of it existing at all. You don't accidentally have no footprint. That takes effort. I don't know what was inside that unit. I've tried not to think too hard about it. What I keep coming back to isn't even the breathing. It's that whatever was inside that unit went completely silent the moment I knocked and asked if someone was there. I worked as a home health aide for 11 years. In that time, I saw a lot of difficult things and a lot of people in hard situations. Most of it I've processed and moved on from. One case, I haven't. Her name was Mrs. Aldine March. She was 74 years old when I started with her. She'd had a fall that winter and needed help with daily tasks. But her mind was completely sharp. We'd have tea in the afternoons. She'd talk about her garden, her late husband, the years she spent working as a bookkeeper. She was warm and easy to be around, genuinely. The sitting room had a fireplace with a long mantel, and the mantel was covered in framed photographs, dozens of them in silver and wooden frames, packed close together. The kind of thing you see in older people's homes, where they've gathered a lifetime of family pictures. I glanced at them the way you glance at someone else's family, politely, without really looking. Around week 3, I noticed something off in one of the frames. It was a photo of a birthday party, 4 people around a table, cake in the middle. One of the 4 had been removed from the image. Not covered, not turned face down, cut out. You could see the white edge where someone used to be, and a fragment of an arm still showing at the edge of the frame. I thought it was a family estrangement. People crop others out of photos. I let it go. The following week, there was another one, a holiday photo. 5 people seated at a dinner table, same thing. 1 person removed, same clean white edge, same leftover sleeve at the border of the image, and then another one the week after that. But here's what I want to make clear. I wasn't watching the same photos change. New photos were appearing on the mantle, photos that hadn't been there before, and every new one already had someone missing from it. I started keeping track on my phone when she was resting. Over 8 weeks I counted 11 new photos that I hadn't seen on my first day, and across those photos, 23 figures that had been cut away. I told myself she was doing it at night, going through old albums, adding pictures, removing people she didn't want to see anymore. Grief does strange things to people. That's not an unfair explanation. I asked her about the photos once, casual over tea. She said she had a beautiful family. She smiled and said she did. I pointed at the birthday photo and said it looked like a fun party. Asked who the other people were. She looked at it for a moment and said she didn't remember who all was there. Then she looked back at me and smiled. Same smile as always. That was the moment something shifted for me. That evening I looked her up online. I asked her name and city. There were normal results at first. A church fundraiser, a local garden club listing, But further down, I found a short article from a regional paper, dated 9 years back. A house fire. Her son Paul and his wife had died. The cause was listed as electrical. The article said an investigation had been opened. There was no follow-up piece anywhere that I could find. I kept digging over the next few days. A drowning, a car accident, a man found at the base of a hiking trail. Ruled an accidental fall, different years, different last names, different towns. All of them connected to Aldine March, somewhere in the family tree. I'm not saying I know what happened. I don't have proof of anything, and I want to be honest about that. What I have is a pattern I can't explain away, and a mantle full of photographs that kept growing, with fewer and fewer people left inside them. I transferred to a different client after 12 weeks. I gave a routine professional reason. No one asked any questions. I think about that room sometimes. All those frames pressed together. Such a large family, at least at one point. Getting smaller every time she added something new.